hey, let's
find some of the attributes.
you know, like, hey, I'm gonna go home tonight.
Preset.
I like
You had sliders and sliders, like on the fly.
10 pounds just to.
My wife doesn't let me tweeting. It's always like
Technically, it's the UX.
alright, honey, yes.
You know, the idea, I think like the general idea of betting about things still like has a commitment.
Yeah. That's how I did it. Everyone about it.
Also, if you guys can find a way to run a legal prediction market, I love prediction markets.
We're not running a prediction market. We got US dollars coming.
Really?
Chat with you. Yeah, they're gonna try to get them involved in the so when you launch it, you have like an audience and people that have like they want to see it and they feel like they have ownership. You know, like it's something they care about.
I like looking at the
There's so much
markets
profits
for
out there. There's 50,000.
They tell a very different story than like, you know,
To be able to like feature for them. That's
AUGU. That's a good name for a prediction market.
stand out in that crowd. You know, you want to have an audience that's like excited to share, like type up. This is for video. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what, just interesting stuff about like, make a bet, win a bet, later you verify that it was, verify that it was. Very interesting. Horse racing is like scared of it. Most of people vote on like the actual track was. Yeah, it's like some kind of prediction part is like built beforehand. Yeah.
What's up?
Billiards, like shooting pool, like one time Vegas, like they totally took a dive, like underdog, like 200 runs, like you're actually just trying to win the underdog. So yeah, you're gonna take it.
Yeah. So what's the
You probably got a lot of
So how much of this
It's hard to say because in some cases like obviously the games are slower, but I think that the CF guys like
that'd be awesome. This guy is really smart. Who's his name? He's the.
Is he like a shot guy?
Yes. I don't know. I think they're. He's really smart about that.
yes.
That's cool. I think exactly. Pretty psyched about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Then if you write in your programs, if you write, actually, Lucas says Lucas might be more, but like if you write in the top of like some documentation, that actually becomes documentation, so that the docs are sort of sitting in the file and they get dropped out.
That's not
Yes. Reading the documentation.
Is that the guy that what would you say you was talking to? I think Joel says name. He says Joel was talking with him. And they may have found a solution for that relies on only one. Yeah, I think I've been to everyone since May. Probably 5 years.
I didn't even know this existed until the guy was
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good presentation. I enjoyed that. Is he the guy who like paints? Yeah. I love that. I've heard about him. Yeah, you just like that's what so we started out using it, and then we got in contact with him, and he did semantic UI. Definitely when he came on board, it totally transformed looking better. Especially since it was all built in semantic anyways, he was able to change things so fast. He was there for like 2 days and it just looked totally different.
He was like, I see what you're doing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When I was looking at GitHub, I was like, oh, this feels like it's just one big workout.
Yeah, this one is. He lives in Brooklyn and he's super like Bohemian for like 2 years, just like doing what he loves. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's such a big project and just one guy. Yeah. It's like, he has all these like philosophical underpinnings.
Hey everyone, your attention please, real quick. We got about 10 minutes before the first talk starts, so if you want to get any drinks or use restroom or whatever, this would be a great time to do that. So we'll see you in 10 minutes.
I gotta hear about this philosophical. So he's like a cognitive science major in college, and he's like super interested in linguistics. And one of his main UIs is to try to like design a language for expressing like concepts. And you know, like he did some like really interesting stuff with like sequences where like construct sentences follows like a very strict like grammatical pattern. So like if you put an adjective in the correct place, a lot of times you just like guess what adjective is needed and then have like the secret. And he's actually like depending on like the word order of like the classes, it's just technically against spec like so you can be like, you know, like big red 5 wide column or whatever, and just like work. And then so like it's really a different development experience because you experiment graphically by just like changing the parameters, by like changing the sentence and putting in. And yeah, he's like read like tons of like linguistic stuff and just like super good talking about that. And the way that I mean, I just really like to do is like, I mean, I'm
I'm not a designer, you know, by any means, and I wasn't even like much of like a web person. But like the semantic, the way that you interact with it is so consistent, and like, so like the way that when you want to make something, what you do is you go through the semantic variety, and you find an example of how you want it to look. You like bajillions of examples, and that's how you talk. Yeah, it's awesome.
Drop-down selector.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. These guys, when they switch over, think of it there. Might not know my small. That was like my biggest problem. It's like,
He's the best at it. I'm in those bootstrap phase where I try to see almost all the process out of my you know what I mean? Where I'm just like, God, I want to scream, I want to see this. It's also nice because semantic is not on tag types at all. So instead of like making classes that you use for like finding things in the DOM and jQuery or whatever, we just have like the tag making for certain things. So we'll have like, you know, submit random as like the tag type. And we have the classes which are not figure out which are the tag and then nice if they don't have classes. Only targeting like so which one do you? It's just gonna sell. This is a very 98 build. I mean, we're doing like an electron. So, it's what GitHub uses for their, like, they, you know, their editor. So I have to actually make a native application. It's just like a data binding, but they don't have a hand. But it's basically just from, yes, we know we're we've been around since are you potentially? Yeah. And you said you're not much of a web guy. I mean, programming, okay, let's see. I mean, so I just read it and for that I did like game engine, so like basically I tried to do something different. I just never really done enough web. But you know, researching like Meteor was like amazing. So I started like super fresh, like yeah, it was like exactly the right way. It's the right place to be. I felt the same way with last year. I've been a web guy, but never deeper. Yeah, I never heard this stuff. Yeah, these tools like having like loaded around. Yeah, everything that should be in it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember like trying to do web development when I was like, I don't know, a while ago, 8 years ago or something like that. And like that compared to now, yeah, it's really different. It's 8 years later. It actually works pretty well for that. It's like, yeah, you know, I thought you meant experience. Right. Gotcha. I thought you meant because he's so I mean, there's like it's actually the same. I didn't investigate. Yeah. I was like, I'm on the fence about going full time. It's still like, you know, I can go for like a year. Just like, and then I got this, like, something else. Start this family house. Yeah. Like, how do I? It was the Garrity family. So one of my partners, former partners, sold the litigation company. So it was him and another guy was and I was this source instructor. They were like, they wanted to be like just never, and then I wrote it. So at the end of the year, it's like, never created project. So I mean, that's the problem.
Okay, let's get started. All right, hi everyone. I'm Robert Dickert. I'd like to welcome you to Devshop. If you're joining us online, please make sure you click the live button so you can sync up to the live stream. You can also submit questions for our speakers by tweeting them using the hashtag Devshop. There's about a 20-second lag on the video, so be aware of that. All right, so let's get started. Our speaker tonight is Tigran Sloyan, co-founder and CEO of CodeFights. CodeFights raised $2.5 million in venture funding in April, and they've been featured in TechCrunch, Hacker News, Business Insider, and the New York Times. CodeFights lets you duel with friends and foes in head-to-head programming battles, and they were among the first to join the Galaxy Early Access program. Tigran has previous experience at Google and Oracle, has 2 degrees from MIT, and has won 4 medals in the International Mathematics Olympiad. So, please welcome Tigran.
Hey guys, thanks Robert for a humbling intro. I'm blushing a little bit, but that'll pass. Cool, so great to be back here guys, talking to you all. I'm super excited to tell you the story today of how we've gone with CodeFights from just an idea to 200,000 users with Meteor, obviously. So, before we dive in, let me take you back to August 2014, August 21st, 2014, right? So this was the first time I had to pull an all-nighter since graduating from MIT. And believe me, my life is not that easy, right? I have a beautiful wife and 2 little kids. I still managed to get some sleep at night, but this one was an exception. And it all started a couple of months back. So a couple of months back, my co-founder Aram and I had this, interesting idea that why shouldn't practicing skills like programming be as addictive as playing something like Angry Birds, right? Sounded like a reasonable thing to do and a fun thing to do. So we said, let's set out to build a platform where engineers could practice programming skills while having a lot of fun. It was an ambitious goal, but we set out to do it. So a couple of months into it, we felt like we had something we weren't too embarrassed to show to people. And that was August. So we had a beta of CodeFights. We started showing it to a couple of friends. Those friends showed it to their friends. And one of their friends decided that it's probably a good idea to post it on Hacker News. So this is what it looked like in August. It was super early beta, and you could actually code when you landed on the homepage, right? And suddenly that turned out to be very important when you're posted on Hacker News, because you get in right away, you start enjoying it, and it turns out to be a lot of fun. So August 21st, I come back home from my full-time job and some soccer. It's 11 in the evening. I open up Google Analytics, hoping to see 5 people online, some of our friends, and I see this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting, right? We're on the homepage, we're on the front page of Hacker News, but oh my God, we are hosting this thing on a microserver on Amazon AWS. This is so bad. So what happened next was we're like, oh, so what do we do now, right? We have no idea how to scale Meteor. We've never had more than 10 people online, right? So we started calling for help, right? So like somebody, come and help us out scale this thing. Fortunately, I knew this guy that some of you would probably know as well. His name is Arnoda. He's from Sri Lanka. He was the first guy who actually built something that lets you deploy Meteor in production. It's called Meteor app. If you haven't used it, use it before you get to Galaxy levels. But I had him on Skype, so I Skyped him. Fortunately, he's a badass, so he's online 24/7. So he responded being like, dude, what's up, what's going on? I'm like, my friend, I'll give you anything you want, just fix up our CodeFights. It's dying, right? Every single page load is taking like 30 seconds, please fix it up. And being a badass, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It was like, well, what would I ask from you, right? So by then he had this enterprise version of Kadira, which is like this app that lets you track stuff. It was like, buy a yearly subscription to Kadira and I'll fix it up. I was like, dude, deal, you got it. Here goes your yearly subscription, please fix it. So 4 hours into it, we had CodeFights up and running with a scalable, more or less scalable setup. And by around like 4 or 5 a.m., Hacker News folks were happy. But the humbling thing is, even when it was breaking, right, when we were looking at the comments on Hacker News, people were like, I can't use this right now because it's taking 3 minutes to load, but I love it, I'll upload it. It's like, this is so cool. We're probably onto something. So the setup was on the top level, you got Cloudflare, which was acting both as a sort of protection from DDoS attacks or anything, as a CDN, and also as a DNS, right? And on top of that, sort of like a router as well, because we had essentially pointing at every single server we had. So there was like an array record pointing to it. And when users would hit the Cloudflare, it would sort of like route them through one of those. That will come back to bite us, but let's hold off on that, right? So the setup on the front was Cloudflare, and then was Meteor app. Meteor obviously in the middle. The deployment was on DigitalOcean because it's pretty easy to create new instances on DigitalOcean. I always say if you're new to sysadmin stuff, don't touch AWS. It's too complicated for you. Just stick with the basics, the DigitalOcean, and it's a button click away to create a new server. And we had MongoHQ, which is right now called Compose.io for our MongoDB management, which also seemed like a good idea because none of us were database specialists, so we really didn't want to deal with like scaling MongoDB installments. So this held up, right? It was actually pretty well scaling. And for about 4 months after that, from September to December, we're just riding the wave, right? We're growing like crazy, and even after the Hacker News thing, the growth didn't stop. So we went from like 0 to 20,000 users in these 4 months, and we were building out new features, having a lot of fun. And in December, we released, we sort of came out of beta, right? So this was our first major release where we actually introduced the versus mode. This is what it looked like, right? This is the versus mode, 2 people coding versus each other. It was only debugging challenges back then, so you got a piece of code, you are supposed to debug it. We also added 3 new programming languages. Back when it launched in beta, it was only JavaScript. So like the number one demanded thing was like, add more programming languages. We're like, okay, we'll add more programming languages. So this was fun, but happiness doesn't usually last long. So we went back to this mode very soon after that. So in February, when the traffic was going even higher, the servers were just crashing, right? So basically, we didn't know what we did. And even when we asked Arunoda, he was like, dude, I have no idea what's going on, right? So your servers are just randomly crashing, like every time you deploy or redeploy, or just it runs for a couple of seconds and it just crashes and goes into this random cycle. We tried everything. We even tried rolling it back to the place we knew it worked, right? And it was still crashing. We're like, what the hell? How is this even possible? This thing is working yesterday, not working today, and the traffic isn't even that high, right? It's supposed to work. Well, turns out, remember when I said using Cloudflare as our load balancer was going to come back to haunt us? So what happened is, this is how a Meteor app works. So you've got this map.json file, right, in which you specify all of your servers that you're going to deploy to, so like the IP addresses. You also have got, obviously, your like credentials in there. So you run map deploy. It goes through every single one and does the deployment. On the user's end, what happens is when the user goes to codefights.com, Cloudflare receives this request, and it looks through your A records, just randomly picks one. Maybe it does a round robin, I'm not too sure. But it basically picks one and sends that traffic to a specific server, and CodeFights loads for you. The mess that we did somehow, which took us a long time and a lot of hair to find, was we mismatched this, right? So the A records and our map.json file weren't matching. So there was a stuck server in here, which was using some old random code, when during the redeploys, it was just getting stuck there. So essentially, in production, we had 2 versions of the app running. And because of this inconsistency, and because it's a versus player, so like, when you interact inside the site with someone else who's using a different code base, things go wild. You don't even know what's happening. So we figured that out, and we swore to always match these 2, or at least figure out another way to handle the load balancing. And we were back up and running again. So this was February, and by then we were growing like 60% month over month. And I felt like it was sort of time to actually quit my job and do the fundraising. And this is a completely different story of the fundraising, of how I couldn't quit my job earlier because I was on H-1B visa. I'll tell that story sometime else. For now, let's say the fundraising took about 2 months. We got 33 investors, raised $2.5 million. We're super happy, and then we went back to building the thing. The first order of business was building an awesome team. So we've assembled a team of what I like to call superheroes, who basically all of them has their special, like, awesome thing about them. And in particular, we got this guy, the front-end engineer. Somehow front-end engineers are really hard to find. I don't know if anyone of you has tried to hire a front-end engineer. They're really hard to find. So we found this awesome guy who does things with CSS that I didn't actually think were possible. But he does that, so we got him on board, and we decided to finally make CodeFights look like what it should have in the very beginning. So we started planning our big redesign. So it was supposed to be in Google Material Design style. If none of you have seen it, it's pretty awesome. It's essentially these new guidelines that Google introduced in terms of how UIs can be built. And so basically, since also our first year anniversary was coming up, we said, wouldn't it be cool if for our first year anniversary we launched this full redesign? So the redesign took about 3 months, and it essentially meant like a full rebuild of our front end. And the full rebuild of our front end also included adding a bunch of really awesome features, one of which was an ability to do large-scale tournaments. So we call them marathon tournaments. This is like a mode where instead of doing it one-on-one, you actually get together with hundreds of people and solve the same set of tasks, right? That's pretty cool. What that also meant is that it's a very short period of very, very heavy load. So you no longer, you get just random spikes. This day, a bunch of people are going to come online, they're going to kill your servers. So even though we were super excited about the whole redesign, we actually, that you can see that link there if you haven't tried it, we actually open sourced the component library that we've built from scratch for building UIs in Material style. But I had this nagging feeling that these tournaments are going to kill our servers, right? So I was like sort of sitting there and being like, dudes, winter is coming. We've got to do something about this. And what do you do when like things are going wrong and you don't know what to do? You reach out to the Meteor team, right? These guys are always super awesome with responding to anything that comes their way. So I pinged Matt, one of the co-founders. I don't know if he's around, but I pinged Matt. I was like, Matt, any news from Galaxy? It sounds like it's about time. Unfortunately, he said, yeah, actually, it's sort of coming together. We have a super early beta, super early beta. It's like mid-August, but we can let you try it. It's like, please let us try it, right? So within 2 weeks, we were actually, even though it was a super early beta, we were up and running on Galaxy. And we're pretty happy about it. And the thing we're the most happy about is we had a 24/7 support team. That's awesome. Right now, we no longer cry and think about what to do. We just reach out to the support team. These guys built this thing. They know how to scale it, right? So our first marathon was coming up end of September, and we're feeling pretty good about it, right? We said it's definitely going to attract close to about 1,000 people, and it did. It brought in 900-something people, and the winners were like all these gold medalists from all over the world. And what happened, though, it was a Wednesday, 9:30, and, unfortunately, everybody decided to join in the last minute. So basically, when it was 9:30, being late, everybody just jumped online. And what that did is effectively just blew up Galaxy. So Galaxy went down, and we're like, oh my God, time to freak out again, right? All these people are like yelling at us, like, where is my tournament? And the page is just not loading. But as I said, right, having a support team and having a core Meteor developer sitting there helping you out with this is a huge thing. So David from Meteor support team was super awesome. Within minutes, he was on it, and within 20 minutes, the day was saved, right? So it came back live, and it has been running smooth ever since. So like ever since that one incident, we haven't seen any issues with Galaxy. And just yesterday, actually, we're on another marathon that had more than 1,000 people. And of course, everybody still jumped online on the very last second, but it still held up. It was still a smooth sail. So to recap a little bit, in this one really fun year, we went from 0 to 90 members, from 0 to 2.5 million in funding, and from 0 to 200,000 users. And we definitely couldn't have done this without the awesome Meteor team and the work that these guys do. So this morphing heart is a token of our love to you guys. Keep up the awesome job. Let's give a big applause to the hosts. You guys rock. And open up to questions. I'll keep the heart there.
Do you have an idea of how many users you have when the Galaxy crashed?
So, I mean, you got to remember it was yes. So the question is how many users came online when Galaxy crashed? And the short answer to it is there were about 600 people who jumped online right at the same time. But the long answer is it was still in super early beta. So we've been warned that this is a beta, but we really didn't have any other options. We had to give it a shot. So
how many were online the time it didn't?
The second time, it was way more. So like the second one was even bigger. So about 700-800 people came online all together, and it still held up like nothing ever happened. Please. Yeah, so the question is, do I have any idea of how many maximum concurrent users we ever had? And had no problems, I assume. So I believe the biggest one was actually yesterday. So at its peak, there were about 1,000 users online. And we were running on 20 containers. on Galaxy, and basically there was no change in metrics or like delays in responses. Please.
Is there a particular sort of modification you made that helped you support more, like, people optimize as time goes on? Is there one that really stands out?
So do you mean like between getting on Galaxy and now, or do you mean overall?
Just overall.
Just overall.
That's a good lesson.
So the question, to repeat the question, is there any particular modification that we did to really help with optimization? And the answer is, so the general topic, generally what has been eating us up was the CPU, right? So if you pass around too much data, and if you subscribe to data, nothing could ever go wrong. When you have very little data, that's usually fine. When your data goes to, our database size is close to 15 gigabytes right now, and when your data goes that big and you subscribe to things like nothing ever happened, your CPU just goes nuts because it has to process a lot of data. So usually, the biggest optimizations that helped us were, how can we limit the amount of data we're subscribing to, right? So for example, for the tournaments, instead of subscribing to every single user that has registered for this tournament, paginate it, right? Subscribe it to 20 and show 20 per page. And another example would be if you're loading the fight, instead of loading all the data beforehand, just load it per round so that you can sort of space it out.
Do you think if you can close the strategy of closing subscriptions and then resubscribing is a good technique?
Closing subscriptions, resubscribe. So the question is closing subscriptions and resubscribing is a good strategy? I've actually seen there is a package that does that, right? So that it basically cleans up subscriptions after you. I'll be honest, we've never tried it, mainly because looking at the code, it goes very deep into Meteor's core and touches things that I wouldn't have the heart to touch. So I was never really confident enough to give it a try. But it might be a good idea, right? Especially if you have a single page app where a lot of data goes back and forth, you eventually might end up with way too many subscriptions. So, go ahead.
So you support languages other than JavaScript now. So how did you manage evaluating that code?
So the question is, we support languages other than JavaScript now, so how do we evaluate the code? It's a great question, actually. So we have, it's basically built completely independently. So it's a thing we call, code runners. So those are workers that live in the cloud that just execute code that comes their way. So we have a system that can create a code runner at any second. So essentially, there's an admin UI that you go and say, create a code runner for me. What this thing does is it spins off a DigitalOcean instance where it deploys the whole system that has all of the compilers that you need. And then once the requests come in, it just gets sent over and comes back. So it's basically, I would say that's the only part that's very independent from Meteor in our whole code base. Cool. Do we have time for more, or should we close it up?
If there's another question, yeah, go ahead.
Where are you hosting the data?
Yes, so the question is, where are we hosting the database? We're still on, now they're called Compose.io. They used to be called MongoHQ. So the old MongoHQ, the new Compose.io, that's where the database is hosted. And basically, they also do dynamic scaling of the resources necessary. And yeah, so far we've never had any problems with. They also actually do for you optimizations. So if they notice there is a slow query, they would actually create an index for you so that you don't have to worry about it. It's pretty cool. Cool. We're good?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Great. Okay. Next up, we will have lightning talks that start in just a few minutes. Let's see. So you can see the lineup at lightningtalks.meteor.com. And we're going to take a 5-minute break first. So if you're speaking, please come up here so we can get you mic'd up. And for the rest of you, take a break, and we'll see you in 5. Thank you.
it seems like you've never built a compiler, you don't know what one is. And I'm like, and I just kind of got down on it. I was like, well, what am I doing? Unless I lost motivation, the reason I went back to it was because I kept doing it.
I'm very impressed that you put this together, by the way. This? The guy. Oh, it's like one of the things. It's something that definitely needs to happen. It's really great to so,
Yeah, and like people will, yeah, you know, like he doesn't like passing with the algorithms and you
put it together.
it's like whatever, you know.
I'd be happy to give you a decision tree. Yeah, let's talk about it. Okay, let's about Meteor.
All right, welcome back. It's time for lightning talks. Our first speaker is Sashko Stubailo, who's a core dev here at Meteor.
Cool. I want to tell you guys about a new project that I'm starting on. I've been working on it for about 2 weeks now with the help of Tom Coleman, who's one of the co-authors of Discover Meteor. I don't know if you guys have, I'm wearing a t-shirt, so that's kind of cool. So Tom Coleman and I are working on this project now, so it's going to be great. So today, what you get when you download Meteor is essentially a toolbox. If you go to docs.meteor.com, it's like looking into a giant box where there's all these different kinds of tools. You know, there's methods, there's subscriptions, there's, you know, some email package, all this different stuff. And it basically becomes up to you. How are you supposed to put all that stuff together to make a working app? You know, it would be like if somebody gave you a giant bag of power tools, a bunch of sheets of metal, and they asked you to build a car. You know, what it doesn't tell you is it doesn't tell you that a car usually has 4 wheels, like which direction they point, like how many people are supposed to be able to sit in the car, stuff like that. So that's the part that we've been missing so far. There's a lot of different ways that you might learn about Meteor today. One of the things, like I mentioned, is Discover Meteor, which is a great book, and it takes you from, you know, some of your first steps with Meteor up to building a pretty great app. There's Stack Overflow, which is great if you have specific questions. There's a lot of community blogs and different websites that give you different tips. You know, if you run into this problem, here's what you might do. You know, and then all-powerful Google is just like any question can be answered. And then there's also some official resources. So there's the docs, like I said, but those just give you a bunch of different tools you can use. There's a GitHub wiki, but you know, it's just a couple of articles. It's kind of like our version of the blog. There's package readmes. Those are hard to find. There's the blog, you know, also hard to find things on there. Basically, the point is you can learn a lot about different individual things, different tools you can use with Meteor, but there's not one place where you can learn about everything in a way that actually tells you about what you're trying to do. And so that's the point. The point about the Meteor guide is to encode what is like the Meteor way of building an app. And this is, if you guys used to use Rails, you know, this is a play on the Rails way, which is back when I was building apps with Rails. It was great to be able to Google basically anything and figure out, like, this is the official way that, like, people do it all the time. There's not, like, 17,000 different ways to do everything in Rails. So we hope that the Meteor guide could be one place where you learn about Meteor best practices in a form that's easy to reference. So it's not a book where you go from start to finish, but it's a series of articles, as I'll mention in a second, that tell you about different topics that you might be interested in. The other problem we're trying to solve is that the knowledge that all the best users in Meteor have, the people who are running Meteor in production, scaling it to 200,000 users, you know, building all these cool apps that you can read about on our website, there's not a place where all that knowledge is centralized, right? They post it on their blogs, they post it in answers on Stack Overflow or Quora, but everyone ends up reinventing the wheel because there's not a place where it's all centralized. And you know, from my point of view, and from the point of view of people who are building packages for Meteor, other extensions, submitted pull requests, it's not always clear where the gaps in the framework are. Like if you were going to set out tomorrow and build a great package for Meteor, like where's the place you could target to hit the most number of people and solve most people's problems? This is a problem I have every day because basically all I do all day is build packages for Meteor. So the answer is the Meteor guide. So you can check it out on GitHub. We're trying to develop everything in the open. in a repository, helpfully named guide. So basically, we're doing all of our discussion, all of our communication on this repository, me and Tom Coleman and lots of different people from the community. So the outline of the thing is like this. Here are some of the 16 articles that we're planning on having in the first version. There's a lot of kind of like greatest hits of Meteor questions on here, right? Some highlights would include like forms, right? How are you supposed to do forms in Meteor? Well, there's autoform, so that's a great start, but it's been a big question in my mind ever since, I started here. Things like, what's the proper way to test every part of your thing? Velocity has some great guides. A lot of people have written great blog posts, but it'd be great if you could just read this and then do what it says and you'd be done. Even stuff about how to debug your app, right? We have some great tools for that, like Meteor Debug, Meteor Shell, but it can be pretty hard to find them if you're just starting out, even though they're such crucial tools. So if you don't think that something is on here that you want to have, you should go to the previously mentioned GitHub repository and post an issue and tell us that you want that article. So the plan for the initial version of the guide is to have 5 stages for each of the 16 articles. So the first stage, which we're basically kind of done with at this point, is what we're calling ideation. It's where we just have an open discussion. We mentioned a bunch of package authors on GitHub, pinged them in their notifications, and we're like, hey, like Sam Hatum, what do you think about testing? Like Josh Owens, where's your security outline so we can integrate into this thing? Now we're finishing up the second stage, which is outlines, which is going to basically, we're outlining every single point that we want to cover in each of the articles. So again, you could go on GitHub today and look at the outlines and see if there's something we're missing, like some big question you've always had about Meteor that you think should be in the documentation but isn't. Now is the great time to tell us that it's in there. Next, we're going to build some example apps and example code that we think will encode all of the best practices that we've learned about. And then we'll actually write all the text and have a cool set of articles. And then, the part after that, which we haven't quite figured out yet, is how we're going to maintain the thing. But that is also a very important aspect of this project. And we can't do it without you. So I encourage you to go and help us on GitHub. That is the wrong URL, but that's the URL for the Meteor framework. But if you go to Meteor/guide, you'll be able to see all of these issues, all of their statuses, and all of the comments of people discussing this stuff. So I hope you guys can come, help us, and tell us what you want, and tell us what you've learned about Meteor in the past 3 years so that we can write it down. Thanks.
Any questions?
Questions? Comments? Suggestions?
Are those 16 those aren't written yet?
The question is, are these 16 articles written yet? They're not written in the classical sense of written, but are... You're like, what other sense is there? I'm going to tell you in a second. At first, I was thinking that we would write each one individually, but I think after talking with a bunch of people, it turns out that it might be better to do all of them incrementally. So start out with coming up with all the ideas, then all of the outlines, then everything, to make sure that they can all be self-consistent. Because there's definitely a danger if we were to write one all the way through, and then we were writing a different article, and we would be like, oh no, like there's no way to make these work together. So right now, all of these articles have all the ideas written down, and about half of them now have like first draft outlines, which will become final unless somebody thinks that something should be changed. Cool. Any other question?
Yeah, I'd suggest that final is a bit too final. Standards had to change for good reasons. I mean, like the W3CS recommendations instead of final standards.
Yeah, so this is a suggestion, just to repeat your thing, that saying that an article like this is final is a bit of a stretch because best practices for building apps are always changing. And I think that's a very important point, which is something that we're going to have to figure out how to maintain, right? Like even books get out of date, stuff like that happens. I think part of the goal of these articles is to keep them, first of all, keep them up to date enough so that they can be kind of like the embodiment of the Meteor framework. So it's kind of the thing that we're always thinking of when we're designing new APIs or changing the way some internals work. They should drive towards improving these 16 things that you can do with the framework, because we've never written down like what are you even supposed to be able to do with this thing. We just wrote a bunch of stuff. So that's one thing that I think will help keep it up to date, is that these are actually might be the things that inform what we do with the framework in the future. And the other thing, which is to temper that a little bit, is not everyone wants to be doing the most cutting edge thing all the time. For people who are looking to find out like some cutting edge stuff, like the blogs, the forums, all the discussions are probably the best place to go, because that's where like all the new stuff is come up with. And then once somebody agrees, or like a lot of people agree that they need to switch to some new thing, that's when we would put it in here. This isn't like about leading the charge. It's about writing down the things that a lot of people know already. There's not a good way to share all of it. Question?
Are you thinking of having essentially one example throughout, or is each article going to have kind of its own set of examples? In other words, by the time you read through the whole guide, would you have sort of created one big project, or are you going to have lots of smaller examples?
Yeah, so the question is there going to be one giant example app that ties together all of these articles? Are there going to be several different example apps? Like, what are you building when you're reading about all these articles? I think from one point of view, like, having an example app is super important, because otherwise how do you know that these things are all real? On the other hand, having a single example app, it means that either that example app has to be super contrived to hit all of these points and all the different ways of doing things, or it means you have to have a lot of different example apps, and then it'll be hard to keep them all up to date. I think we're going to try to hit some intermediate stage where we're going to make sure that all of our example apps actually follow this advice, right? So like to-dos, like the local market thing, whatever other example apps we build in the future are going to embody these principles, but we also might have some things that are like floating in space as just separate code samples. Because I think like whatever would be blocking us from updating, making it easy to update this document would be like a bad thing to have, kind of. And like having too much example code that tries to cover all these things means like every time we change something, we'll have to like update a lot of different stuff. So I think we have to strike a good balance there. So like, yeah, the short answer is we'll have example apps, but they probably won't cover every single point in the entire thing. And actually, it will be a great opportunity for other people to write example apps that cover the things that we didn't cover. So that'd be cool as well. Cool. Anything else? All right. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Great. Thanks, Ashko. Next up, we'll have Harry Ward, who is a creator at Stash.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Harry Ward, and Stash is a fun project that I created about 2 weeks ago to solve my own problem as a product manager / engineer. I spend half of my time writing tickets. Does anybody else write tickets in the room? Yeah. So it's harder for me personally to write a ticket than it would be to like code a demo module that I'd want him to use. Like to explain to someone, I want it to look like this, versus just quickly do it with some CSS and HTML and some JavaScript, it takes a lot longer for me to do that. So, and I also use Slack. Does anybody in here use Slack? Everybody. And there's this big problem with like putting code snippets and things into Slack. I don't know if any of you have tried to scroll up and down through a conversation that goes on 100 tangents, try to find snippets. The snippets are raw code, so you can't really do anything with them. And so what Stash does is it allows you, and it's totally free, and allows you to use Slack with your team and have a place to store rich snippets. They could be just README files. It could be a glorified Google Doc, but it's directly linked to channels or multiple channels. So if I make a comment on on one of these Stash snippets, and it's tied to 3 channels, it's going to alert all 3 channels. Okay? And so I'll just give you a quick demo. I'm logged into my team. This is just a demo little Stash account, and these are all the stashes that I've posted. I can filter them by channel or channels. I can also just search. And if I want to create a new one, I just hit post. I'll call it Meteor Devshop Demo. This is a tease. And then I get to choose what Slack channels I want to tie it to. I can tie it to multiple. And then if I want to tie it to a private group, I can do that as well. I'll create the snippet. At this point, it tracks anybody who contributes to it. So if one of you guys contributed to this, your picture would be next to there as a contributor. It tracks who's viewing it right now, which is kind of cool. And it started me off with a very basic blank stash. And from here, I can remove or add different Slack channels if I want to. It shows you all the members that are essentially going to receive updates that you post. And then what I can do is I can click edit, and I have a full README, which accepts Markdown or HTML. I have an HTML field where I can put HTML. I have CSS, which I can apply, JavaScript, which I can apply, and then a bunch of templates, which I'm still figuring out what I want to do with this, but it's kind of cool. So this Devshop profile list is the thing that I just created when I was sitting over there, and it includes HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a quick little README. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and you're going to notice that I have the README, the result, which is this, and the ability to do kind of what, this is like the magic of this whole thing is not everybody's in your Slack team that you want to share things with. How big of a pain is it when you're trying to communicate, like link two people on a communication channel that you don't want this person in? You know what I mean? So what this allows you to do is have a public link, which you get by clicking run, and this executes everything. So I have JavaScript in here, which is chilling down here, where when I click these buttons, it changes some stuff. So if I click option 1, oops. Option 1, option 2. So I have JavaScript executing, CSS executing, HTML, and so now this guy can be like, that's awesome, without logging into Slack, okay? That's awesome. This now goes to every Slack channel that's linked to it without him being a Slack member. It's a great thing to get feedback from people on like one-off projects. Now, let's pretend that this guy said, you know, that's horrible. And one of your engineers hops in and he goes, what's this guy's problem? Okay? The whole team can see this. Slack just blew up. Everyone's like, yeah, what is this guy's problem? But the customer can't see that. So it's like you can have like this back channel of communication about something and only expose what you want to expose to the customer. If you have a Slack account, you can use it for free. I'm open to ideas. It's stash.io, stached.io. And like I said, it's free and it's fun. Any questions?
Spell it again.
What was that?
How do you spell it?
S-T-A-C-H, like mustache, but stashed, E-D. With the D, yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
So that application is going to be available on mobile too?
Yeah.
Question?
Sorry, he asked if it was available on mobile too. I haven't pushed an actual app out, but if you were to share someone a public stash link, it does render on mobile. They can comment on mobile, and you know, it's not really built to be a standalone app because like the end consumer that you would send stuff to would never download an app to view a single snippet. But does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also an idea too.
Yeah. For sure.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have Alan Sled, who's the founder at KitMojo.com.
All right, good evening. Great. This thing is really cool. Good evening. All right, I'm on. My name is Alan Sled. Thank you to Meteor for giving me this opportunity to show off this thing that I built. I'll be pulling up in just a second. 2 warnings. 1, I'm sick with a cough, I'm sorry. And the second warning is I've taken every drug known to man to try to stop this cough, so that might throw me off a little bit. A year ago, I didn't know anything about web programming. If you'd told me that JavaScript was different from Java, I would think you were crazy. I still think we should do something about that as a group. I was a mechanical engineer. I'd been working for Tesla Motors for 6 years, building things out of metal and wires and glue, surprising amount of glue. And then I wanted to try to do something on my own. For years, I'd been interested in disaster preparedness and outdoor survival. I've been pretty active in the outdoors, and it translated well into disaster preparedness. And so it made to be a reasonable choice when I decided I was going to try to start a business on my own. Let me go ahead and pull it up. I made this website called KitMojo in 9 months, from knowing nothing to having it launched. A month and a half later, I released revision 2 with some feedback, and it is still a work in progress, but I really wanted to show it off to you guys. The idea behind this site is it's to help you build the kit that you need, fit specifically to you. Now, how many people in this room are ready, and I mean seriously ready, if an earthquake were to happen right now? We've got 2%. Awesome. All right, now how many people feel like they ought to be maybe more ready for this kind of event? Solidly 50%. That's cool. I applaud that. The other 50%, zombies need to eat somebody. That's fine. This site is to try to help you to get from the second group to the first group. Previously, your options have been either to spend about $100 on a bargain bucket and risking a lawsuit. I will say, don't do that. They're terrible. They're just full of junk. Or you could do a ton of research, read a ton of books, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, disregard most of those YouTube videos, and then buy a bunch of stuff yourself. And neither of those are very good options for people. So this site is to leverage all of that research and work that I've done to help me build a kit for you. So let's go through it. Do I have a volunteer to get more prepared? Anybody? Anybody in the front? Down. All right. Sir, where would you like to be more prepared? At home, on the road, at your work, or when you go outdoors? Do you go outdoors?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, you go outdoors. That's good.
If I'm in the wilderness, if I'm otherwise on the road.
You want to go on the road? Okay, that's a great choice. You're out driving. You're somewhere without cell signal. You break down. You have a minor accident, something like that. A kit is a good thing to have. Now, this is a lightning talk, so we got to blast through this thing. But who's going to be with you in that car when you have that problem?
2 small children, a baby, and a dog.
And just you driving?
Yes.
All right. That's a lot of responsibility, sir. All right, now, what's your general want for the size of this kit? Do you want just the essentials? You want everything imaginable, or do you want some bland, reasonable? Oh, you want everything. Oh, this guy's going big. I like it. All right, now, do any of these specifically concern you out of the top of your head? Now, we live in California, so if you don't check earthquake, I'm going to be very upset with you.
Yeah, earthquake, zombie apocalypse.
Of course. And you laugh, but a lot of people click that. Google Analytics. It's amazing. All right, and then bam. This kit has been built in the background the whole time we've been answering these questions. So there's no loading time. I love that. It's broken down by category, price and volume and weight and number of items. You can mouse over these items to get basic information. But the really cool part comes when you come to the customization part. Now, you could just buy this outright. You could say, oh, yeah, I trust this guy, Alan. I'm just going to buy it. Or you can say, you know, there's some things I would change about this. And you see down here on the bottom, the weight, the capacity for weight, the volume, the capacity for volume, total price, pieces, everything's tracked. And it is expensive because you went comprehensive, which is awesome. Everything's got to go into 2 of these backpacks. If you click on them, it'll give you some more information about the pack. If you want even more information, you can click this, and it'll take you to the Amazon page for that pack. But say you want to divvy it up between 3 packs. You do that, now you got more capacity. So you're filling up 55%, 40% of your weight and your volume respectively. But say you don't like this backpack. Say you want to get rid of it, you can add another backpack. You could say, oh, Osprey makes nice packs. Let's get a couple of these in here. Cool, those are nice. Great. Let's get rid of a couple of these, and now we've got, oh no, it's too much for these little tiny packs. We need more of them. Cool. So now we got 4 packs. You got a bunch of kids, they can all carry one. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You've got your anti-zombie weapons here. You've only got one. You're going to have to defend a lot of kids with this one zombie-bashing weapon. Cold steel trench hawk. Good choice. Very practical. Let's get a couple more of them, hand them out to the kids. We're getting a little high on the weight, but that's cool. That's fine. All sorts of other things. But the point here is that now you have a kit that's made out of quality items that are name brand that you recognize, things you would actually want to depend on if you had to depend on them. And you can buy it very easily. So it's time to buy. Let's buy it. All right, it's going to connect to Amazon. Connect to Amazon. All right, cool. Oh, man, you got a kit with over 50 items. That's because you went comprehensive. Amazon limits carts to 50 items. So we're going to have to buy this with 2 carts. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be like Christmas in, well, November, close enough. So here's the first one. Look at all this stuff. This is awesome. So you'd go through, you'd purchase all this stuff, and then you'd come back, and you'd purchase the rest of it. Now, I know this is huge, but again, you went comprehensive, and you added on that zombie stuff, and then I added on all those nice backpacks. And then you're set. All the stuff shows up, you put it together yourself, and you can feel ready in your car. And then you got to get a kit for all the other situations and scenarios you're worried about. But that's it. That's KitMojo. That's my business. If you want to give me feedback or anything like that, I'm super interested in any feedback. The email is at the bottom of the page. This is all built with Meteor. And I love Meteor. I've got their shirt. So, thank you. Yeah, I'm back.
Well, so he buys this kit, and
Yeah.
then he comes back, he says, oh, I want to be prepared for other situations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, yeah, exactly. Is it just the changes? He's not going to want to get duplicates of everything. I mean, he's going in his car to go hiking, then he's in the outdoors. I mean,
Right. Well, if you want to be really thorough, you want a kit in each of those locations in case stuff happens when you're in each of those locations.
I have my outdoors kit with me in the car when I'm getting the outdoors.
Great. That's good. And there will be some overlap there, which is why I allow all this customization. So you can pull things, add things. And also, if you get down here, and this isn't quite related and doesn't answer your question. I'm sorry, I should repeat the question. The question is, how do you avoid redundancy in kits? And yes, you're going to have to do some customization if you actually get a kit for each situation, so that if you do carry your cold steel trench hawk from home to your car on your hiking trip, never knowing the zombies are going to come. You only want to own one of those. That'll require customization. And certainly when you get down here, because it's fully reactive and it's built with Meteor, if you don't care about zombies, you can dump the zombies, and it just dumps that stuff and automatically adjusts. So you can change your answers later on. You can dump the earthquake stuff. You can go down to balanced, and it'll cut out a lot of the gear. And then you can go back to customizing as usual. Yeah. Yeah. Right there, table 3. Did you have a question, or that was a hat adjustment? Yeah, that's cool.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What about your long-term bug out, secluded location, got to hold out zombies everywhere for a year?
Right. So the question is, can I handle long-term bug out, hide out for a year, zombies everywhere kind of situation? No. This website is for the entry-level disaster preparedness situation. So people with bunkers don't need my website. Yeah. Well, if you want 6 months food supply, you can make that kit. I don't design that kit, but if you want some of these mountain house freeze-dried meals, or maybe some MREs or something, just add 16 of these. Just crank it up. Go 20. Now you got food for a long time. That's great. And you'll notice that doesn't affect your total weight and volume because it's stored outside the container. If you try to fit it in the container, oh, God. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Last one.
Last one.
Is there a particular kind of shotgun that you recommend?
Good, sir. Great question. If you go comprehensive, so obviously I can't sell firearms online, and I'm an absolute advocate of safe and responsible gun ownership within legal limits. But if you go comprehensive with zombies, oh, this is the road kit. Hold on, let's go home kit. Don't put guns in your cars, kids. Well, you got your zombie survival guide. That's important. That's a great book. Let's go through here. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, where is it? Maybe I cut it out. But yes, the Remington 870 is a really solid pump-action shotgun. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Nick Coe, who is a community organizer here at MDG.
Let me get everything plugged in here. All right, everybody. So again, my name is Nick Coe. I work on the community team here at Meteor. 1 month ago, I stood in this very spot and I told you guys that we had successfully built events for our global distributed hackathon in 6 continents, and that I was currently in the market for an Antarctic captain to lead our efforts down there. I'm sorry to say that no one approached me afterwards and volunteered to be the Antarctic captain. I wasn't quite ready to stop there, so I actually wound up tweeting at the McMurdo Station base in Antarctica, but I was met with silence. So this time, unfortunately, we didn't have an Antarctic version of the Meteor Global Distributed Hackathon. To our Antarctic viewers, I apologize. But it was still really great. We had over 1,000 developers in 90 cities on 6 continents. And we wound up with 140 submissions that were, incredibly diverse and a lot of fun to look at and to, I wound up being a judge, so it was a lot of fun to judge a lot of them. If you're interested in reading more about what happened at our hackathon, you can go to the link that I've listed right here. It's pretty easy to remember, just info.meteor.com/blog. But in the meantime, I wanted to take a chance to just show you our top 3 finishers as rated by our judges. So let me go ahead and pull up, oh gosh, now you guys know that I didn't actually tweet at McMurdo Bay. So the first one I wanted to introduce to you was Kindshare, which was our third place finisher. And Kindshare was described as a better way to donate. So I'm going to go ahead and just play this video for you.
Kindshare to manage the available resources. With this, they can track the number of meals being served and also get alerts when resources are running low. These requirements are automatically shared with the public via a mobile app, where they encourage to donate meal plans that contribute to the food safety net of their city, or even just donate toward individual items that are in urgent need. Proceeds from all donations are distributed amongst all member organizations, based on stock availability as well as their total meal balance. Collecting cash rather than tins of food leads to an interesting side effect. We can now have profits. Since we're buying in bulk, any discounts we earn can be considered profits, which can be used to target other problems we face. Donating stuff. There are 2 main problems people and businesses face when wanting to donate things. Who needs it, and how do I get it there? We solved the first problem by allowing businesses and individuals to upload photos of items they'd like to donate. Once a member organization is interested, we get to solving the second problem by using the profits from bulk buying to fund this pickup.
So I think that's the end of the audio for this video, but there are still 7 seconds to go in the video. But I think you guys get the idea of what Kindshare is about. The next one I wanted to introduce to you, which I think is also probably the nominee for best video, like just the quality of the video was really high, is the Meteor train, which is exactly what it sounds like. And I'll let these guys take it away.
Hello, a warm welcome here from Austria. We participated in the Meteor Global Distributed Hackathon, and this is our project. A toy train which is controlled with a mobile device. What you see here is a Raspberry Pi 2, and it runs a Meteor app which controls the engine. The application shows a speed indicator and gives you the possibility to set the desired speed. You see the speed indicator rises and also the train goes around. You see it has a soft start as well as a soft stop, and also the lights are switched in the right way according to your desired direction. There's only one seat in the driver's cab. Now the user on the right phone is in charge of controlling the train, but he can leave the driver cab to give another person the possibility to control the train. As you see, we not only had fun during the hackathon in implementing this and building this stuff, we'll also have much fun playing with the toy train now. Goodbye from Austria.
Ciao. Thank you, Meteor Train team, very much for that video. And finally, I wanted to introduce our overall winner for the hackathon. This team built a product called REST to DDP, which enables you to publish a live DDP API for any existing REST API with no coding required. So I'll let Paul Dowman take it away.
Hi, I'm Paul Dowman from OKGrow. My team was Carl Daniger and Ben Strahan, who are also from OKGrow, plus David Hurley, who took our Meteor training course. We created a service that converts any legacy REST API into a live updating DDP API. It's called REST to DDP. Here's a quick demo. Here is a setup for the Trello API that is going to list all the cards in a Trello list. Here's the list. These are the cards. This is the REST endpoint URL to get that. You can see that there's a variable that I've defined for the list ID. Also, this is the application key and the OAuth token. Those will be defined by a runtime and passed into the subscription by the user. These are the values that I'm using just to debug this in here to make sure that I'm setting it up correctly. I can see the response, and I am given an automatically generated code that I can use in my client. Let's go to a client. So I've already pasted that code in here. If I do Trello cards.find.fetch, I can see that I've got my Trello cards here as a collection. I also put these in as inside an auto run so that when I change them, you'll see that automatically updated. Here's a new card. And now there it is. A fourth object appeared, and there it is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so all those built in 24 hours during our global distributed hackathon. We have 139 other videos. Not all of them live up to the Meteor train production value, but a lot of them, in fact, most of them I would say are a lot of fun to watch. You can get to them through the blog post that I posted a link to earlier. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone who helped out with this. We had a lot of people who pitched in to make this event so much fun. A lot of them in this room right now. A lot of them might be watching on YouTube or on the live stream right now. I just want to say thank you very much. And that's it for my talk. I'm happy to take questions. Anybody got any?
What are you guys doing to keep the momentum going?
So the question is, what are we doing to keep the momentum going? Good question. A big part of it is that a lot of our meetups from around the world hosted instances of this hackathon, and a lot of them are going to be hosting follow-ups where they showcase how they were built, improvements that have been happening in the meantime, and basically keeping these projects going over a longer period of time than the 24 hours where they started. So I think that'll be part of it. There'll probably be other ways as well, but that's one we know about right now. Anybody else?
Do you have any up-and-coming Meteor trainings?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you have any up-and-coming Meteor trainings?
The question is, do we have any up-and-coming Meteor trainings? We don't run any Meteor trainings out of Meteor HQ, but I would encourage folks who are watching to go to their meetups. It's often a great place to learn about things, and there are also a lot of online resources for training as well. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks. Okay, that's it. So thanks for joining us tonight, and thank you to our speakers tonight. If you're watching online, please subscribe to be notified of new videos and Devshop live events. You can rewatch tonight's live stream at any time. We'll also be posting each talk as its own video. We also upload links from Devshop London and now Devshop New York as well. So definitely subscribe to those and keep an eye out for new videos. Our next Devshop San Francisco will be Thursday, December 3rd. So you'll be able to RSVP at meetup.com/Meteor-SF-Bay. For those of you who are here in person, please help us to clean up by throwing away some trash. Bring your chair back to the corner. We still have plenty of food and drinks, so please feel free to stick around and hang out for a little while. So thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll see you next time.